we'll get started now. So it's my pleasure to introduce a panel, and I'll start out with our moderator for this wonderful panel. His name is Hubert Kotlinski. And if you can raise your hand as I say your name so people know who you are. So Hubert. And then we have Jordi Baylina, Andrew Koller, Alex Gluchowski, and Marek Olszewski. Almost got it right. Next time. So please go ahead and start, and you will be discussing how L2s win as the L1 matures. So I'll hand over my mic to you. Please go ahead.
Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Hubert. I'm from the L2B team, and we hold those guys here accountable for their everyday actions. We are always watching, right? And I'm happy to welcome you to the panel called How Do L2s Win as L1 Matures, right? So maybe really quickly, just every one of you could just introduce the L2 that you work on and what you focus on right now, right? So like everybody is kind of up to the speed, and then we'll get to like the whole context for the panel. So Alex, you can start.
Yeah, happy to start. I'm Alex from ZK Sync. ZK Sync is a network of L2s. It's not a single L2. It's a framework and a network powered by ZK proofs that includes L2s like Era, Abstract, Sophone, Lens, and many others. Like Deutsche Bank just launched Memento yesterday. So like institutional, consumer, gaming, like lots of different chains.
Hey everyone, I'm Marek Olszewski. I'm one of the founders of Cello. Cello is, I think, unique in that it is the only chain here that was previously an L1 that has now transitioned to become an Ethereum L2. We're focused very much on real-world use cases. We have a lot of mobile payment activity happening on Cello. We've partnered with a company that you probably know, Opera, which is this browser company that has been around for a while. And they've launched this mobile wallet called MiniPay on Cello that has now passed 7 million users, and people are using it primarily in emerging markets like kind of a global Revolut, or in the US we have Venmo, like a global Venmo. And we just have a lot of stablecoin related use cases that really are trying to mirror traditional financial primitives and less so, focused on kind of the traditional speculative use cases that exist on crypto today.
Hey everyone, I'm Andrew. Started Inc. within Kraken, which is kind of like a blend of our on-chain efforts at Kraken, including our L2, which the L2 is actually Inc., but we just kind of call everything on-chain Inc. at Kraken. And then our main focus is like kind of growing our prosumer audience and enable a lot more opportunities for them on-chain. So this is about like fostering a DeFi ecosystem that's going to be plugged deeply into our centralized exchange. So that includes kind of shared liquidity and making sure that we have an awesome audience of 15 million clients that we can bring into a deeper on-chain like DeFi ecosystem.
Hello, I'm Jordi Baylina. I'm a Polygon co-founder. I was a technical lead of the ZKVM and built the ZKVM there. And currently I'm working in Zisk. Zisk is a ZKVM to try to prove with latency on time. This is going to be very important mainly for the aggregation layer. Aggregation layer is the main product on Polygon, and it's the framework for running chains, for connecting chains between them.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. So a bit more context with the recent changes to the Ethereum Foundation leadership, like particularly Tomasz from Nethermind becoming the co-executive director, right? I think there was this little shift to the narrative behind Ethereum, right? So like even like a year or two years ago, we heard that we'll probably soon have like 10,000s of L2s that will be like the first connection to retail, right, for Ethereum. But now I think like this a bit like there is like a much more focused on scaling the L1, right? And all of the upgrades like Pectra Fusaka, and so on, are getting like pushed a lot faster than they were supposed to, right? And the question is, right? So, are you guys like feeling comfortable with all that is happening, and how exactly your business changed in the last couple of months, right? With all of those little changes, because we all witnessed like what happened to the ETH price, right? Like this .eth uprising on Twitter, stuff like that, right? So I'm just curious, what is your stance on that right now? So maybe Alex, you could start with like the ZK Sync approach.
Sure. So if we look back at the history of Ethereum, Ethereum has been, like Bitcoin was the first decentralized blockchain, and it was like the Nokia moment of blockchain, and Ethereum became the iPhone of blockchain. So it turned into a platform where it became a lot more powerful because now you can build things on top of this big platform. And with rollup-centric roadmap, what I think happened is it turned into a platform of platforms. Like really creating a world where there are many BD teams, many different worlds, different communities that are building on Ethereum. And the reason they're building there is not so much technological. Like it would be possible to some degree. Like there was the original Ethereum sharding roadmap where you could scale layer 1 by introducing asynchronous shards that would be all uniform, faceless, and just scale like arbitrarily, and all of the ideas of like ZK improving data availability sampling. Technologically, things were there that could lead to this roadmap succeeding. Ethereum has embraced this path of different faces and different identities of the communities that are building on it. I think this is very powerful, and this is what's going to lead to a much bigger success. Like, I don't think there is a need for general purpose L2s to really exist if they don't have anything particular, specific, some unique advantage, either because of community or because of some business partnerships or because of specific features that enable some like unique, distinct use cases. Maybe it's privacy. Like ZK Sync announced a private Previdium, a private framework for building private permission chains, which institutions can use, which enables things that they cannot build on layer 1. So I think this is yeah. So like Ethereum should absolutely scale from my perspective. The layer 1 become the most robust decentralized DeFi layer, and then we build a much richer world on top of it.
Yes, I think that's sorry, Jordi, like the best moment for Marek to jump in, right? Because you guys were an L1, right? That migrated to L2, and now we see that maybe we'll have like a little problem with filling the L1 block space, not even talking about the L2s themselves, right? So what's your view here?
Really terrible for L2s. I'm just kidding. No, I mean, in seriousness, I mean, I think scaling the L1 is only good for the L2s. I think making more blob space obviously makes data availability cheaper. Scaling gas only makes verifying, for example, ZK proofs a lot cheaper. So all of these things actually only make L2s more appealing. So I'm actually really excited about this direction. I think if anything, this to me makes Ethereum more likely to become the settlement layer of the web. And I think I do think that maybe some of Ethereum's criticisms lately might be a little short-sighted. I think if you really look at where we are in terms of global crypto adoption, to me it feels like there's just a lot of smoke and there's a lot of really exciting things happening, but we haven't yet hit the fire stage, right? And we're just on the cusp of hitting that. And I think when that happens, the demand for block space is going to be so great that there will be no single L1 that will be able to meet the demand. Certainly not any of the other L1s that have launched more recently that claim higher throughputs. And I think ultimately when that happens, Ethereum is just going to be in the pole position to take all of that block space because it's invested so heavily in this L2-based scaling roadmap. And I think now that we have, all of this amazing work happening with, proving ISA-based machine code using ZK snarks, now being able to prove it in real time as of just a few weeks ago. I think there's no better place than Ethereum to be for when this future happens. So we're very, very excited still, absolutely.
Okay, and Jordi, you can give your opinion before I was rude and stopped you.
I mean, I think it's too short time to see the results of what's going on in there. There is one thing that I'm afraid. I'm not saying that this is happening right now, but this is, depending how we see this new era on Ethereum, this can be dangerous. And it's something that we've seen in the L2s. I mean, in the L2s, we had a lot of pressure from, let's say, some markets. I mean, I'm talking about DeFi or gaming. I mean, if you see these markets, the requirement for decentralization is not that much. I mean, they just want transactions, they want to do fast transactions, and this is what really matters for these kinds of application. Okay? But this is not really what we are building. I mean, we are in a world where we want to decentralize things. We want to do censorship resistance and to keep all that. Probably there is a space, and that's the cool thing of the L2s. I mean, you can have an L2 that's more centralized, another that's more decentralized, that have one thing and the other. And this is one of the differences, for example, that we saw with the original Ethereum idea of sharding, with all the shards are the same. Here we are going to a more heterogeneous network. I mean, we realize that the network is not everything is the same, and we have different kind of chains or different kinds of requirements, and this is this diversity of L2s. And this is also what helps to evolve. I mean, we can have EVM networks, but we can have EVM with some extensions, or we can have something like WASM networks, why not? Or we can have like things like Maiden or different chains that are not even EVM related, but they need to be connected somehow. So this diversity, I think it's important, and this is one of the changes that from the original Ethereum has changed, that it is something that's good. But what I'm more afraid is that, I mean, this push, I mean, this force of the market that somehow don't care for decentralization, and that we in L2s, we suffered a lot. I mean, we had to sacrifice a lot of, let's say, decentralized properties just in order to get adoption and to get market. I hope that there is a kind of a firewall, so that this craziness that we live in L2s don't transfer to L1s. Because L1 needs to be very, very, very decentralized. It's impossible to build an L2 decentralized if L1 it is not. If it's impossible to build an L2 safe, if L1 is not. So it's impossible to build an L2 with censorship resistance if L1 it's not. So taking care of the values, I mean, of the core values of what we are building. I mean, I trust Ethereum, I believe in Ethereum, but at the same time, I'm afraid that we may lose these values. And if we lose these values, maybe we may win some markets, but we will lose the battle, because we need to understand what we are building. So we may try to go fast, we can try to compete, and maybe maybe there is other L1s that are doing better. I mean, of course you need to compete and you need to do it better, but please, without sacrificing the core values of what Ethereum is, because if we lose that, we'll lose everything.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you think is it because everybody wants to be like Solana? Is that?
Well, yeah. I mean, Solana is an example. I mean, they are pushing hard. I mean, and they are getting a lot of traction. But do we want to be like Solana? I mean, Solana is already there. I mean, if we want to be a pure decentralized, I mean, what happened is at this point, Trump says to the Solana friends, we have to stop that. I mean, they're running all the servers in a data center. Who knows? Of course, until this don't happen, we will not see it. And probably people may realize that this is fine. But decentralization is not about that. If you want, I mean, and again, depending what you want to build, I mean, if you want to build, I don't know, some casino game on top of that, maybe Solana is enough. I'm not saying that there are some applications that you can build on top of that. But if we really want to build a common good that's from the whole humanity, with censorship resistance, with that anybody can use, and that you don't have to ask anybody permission to be there, that just exists. That belongs to everybody, not to some set of, let's say, capital VCs. I mean, that belongs to the humanity. We cannot build a Solana. I mean, we need to build Ethereum. And we cannot convert Ethereum to Solana.
Yeah,
even if we lose some markets.
I would never say that the Solana is like the biggest competitor to Ethereum. It's rather stuff like Celestia and other chains that like position themselves as the base layer, right, for all of those. I
would love Ethereum to have competitors, but because I think competition is good for this. But I would like to have competitors in decentralization and the competitors in the real values, not competitors in block time or competitors in throughput. I mean, even if you are running, I mean, if a single server is generating all the blocks.
Yeah, like no technicalities will ever be worth more than the social layer of Ethereum, I would say, right? But like Andrew, maybe you can just jump in because you are the newest kid on the block, right? With Link, like the freshest one of the bunch. So maybe you can give your opinion here.
I'll keep it kind of short so we can do the next topic. But like to be a little cheesy, it's like agree with everybody here. But as far as Kraken goes, like it doesn't really. With the L1 scaling, it does not change our business model or outlook at all. It's like, I agree that it's going to make L2s more attractive. We can have more throughput, better DA or cheaper DA. But, like if we really are targeting in wanting the whole world and billions of people on chain, that's not going to exist all in one L1. It's just not going to happen, right? As much as like there's other people that wish that could happen and might say like it could now, it's just not. And so like we have the fortunate position of having our centralized backing, so it makes sense for us to just have our own protocols incubated for our loyal institutional clients. And if they want to use something that's backed by us, then we have something for them, a good on and off ramp. And that's kind of like our community and ecosystem around like our Kraken values and clients. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, as you said, maybe going to the next topic, tackling something that Jordi already mentioned. So, like this whole market perspective, right? Because till now, I would say that the thesis was that L2s were like these business, right, arms of Ethereum, right, making sure that the values are shared to all, to the whole world, right? But the question is, as an L2, you are kind of getting those values from Ethereum. But what in the point where, like in maybe like a couple of years, right, the L1 itself might be so cheap, right, and so fast that why should you why should you start with an L2? You could do like you could do it like on the L1 itself. So so what is your what is like your future plans here, guys? Do you plan to fight for like some fresh users, right, from Opera or from like centralized entities like Kraken, right, to kind of target them towards this Ethereum ecosystem, or do you like maybe plan to incubate like some unique projects like Polymarket or Self protocol, right, for example, on Celo? So like what is the unique proposition for the times when we would have Beam chain, we would have like all of these new shiny upgrades for the L1 itself, right? Why would we go with you guys? So Marek, I see you are.
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, I think we have to, pull in new users. We can't be fighting for the same existing users in Web3 today. And I think we've seen a lot of that, a lot of, folks creating incentives and people just jump from chain to chain to go and take those incentives. And once they're done, they move on. I think that's not a way that we grow the pie. We have to all go out there and find our own users. And so at Celo, the way we're doing this is by, again, really focusing on these real-world use cases. I mentioned the Opera MiniPay wallet. The nice thing about MiniPay is that it's a stablecoin-only wallet. So you can only custody USDT, USDC, and CUSD in the wallet. And so you can already see that the kind of user that's going into MiniPay is a very different user from your typical crypto kind of Web3 degen. And I think when you partner with someone like Opera, who has 500 million monthly active users already on their platform, then there's a really amazing opportunity to bring all of those 500 million monthly active users on chain. And I think that, I know a lot of these other chains are also thinking about, partnerships and finding their own users. And I think ultimately that's the way that, one, we grow the pie, and two, we don't compete against Ethereum. And so we're very excited about that approach.
Okay, I think what projects like Kaito and others showed recently, right? That there is only a couple 100,000 these hardcore crypto users, right? And we actually should maybe search for them somewhere else, right? So I think that's the perfect moment for Andrew, right? To step in with this whole idea of getting the sex users onto L2s.
Yeah, I'm very biased with this, but we already have the users, right? We have 15 million accounts, and our whole goal is basically to take our ecosystem and our L2 and just start blending it entirely with our centralized systems and products. So I think the Kraken world will look a lot different a year or 2 years from now, where all kind of core experiences are blended with our L2. So it makes sense for us to have basically our Kraken application-specific L2 with our own DeFi ecosystem that, again, just plugs into our pro and consumer products. And it really makes it so that a centralized user, our existing ones, can go onto the exchange and then have a whole separate decentralized experience where they don't really know that they're in that. So try to abstract all those complexities that new people or new users usually run into with crypto. Yeah, it's a fun journey trying to figure out how to take our order book and make it on chain, or blend the worlds and have off chain and on chain liquidity. There's a lot of weird experiments that we have with that. So I think, I think we will hopefully acquire new users. Initially, we're just going for our 15 million. That's what we have. That's a really good starting point. And then once that kind of is all stable and we have core products integrated, or decentralized products integrated into our exchange, then we're probably going to go out and find new partnerships and new users, kind of like you guys have with Opera. But yeah, we're pretty happy with our existing user base right now.
Okay, so the super chain guys spoke, but how does it look like for Elastic Chain and Aglayer, right? From your perspective, guys, do you?
So what we see is there are strong incentives for successful applications with product market fit, both crypto native and outside of crypto who are exploring crypto, to go with their own chain. It's a whole spectrum of incentives, from the technical ones where you have full control to specific technological things that, for example, with Previdium, as I mentioned before, you need privacy at the chain level, you need your institution to control it, you can only do it this way. Two completely non-technological reasons, it's a lot easier to design tokenomics for an app with revenue streams if you have a decentralized validator set, and then instead of just distributing the revenue to token holders, you have to introduce staking, and then the staking is kind of introducing new mechanisms of value capture that are consistent with compliance that does not make the token a security. So a whole bunch of incentives. And so as it becomes easier over time to deploy your own chain, and we are on track to make it as easy, as smooth as just launching a smart contract app on layer 1. You will, the choice is going to be not obstructed by the complexities or overhead effort of deploying a chain. It's going to be very, very, very easy. And these chains are going to be all connected in a completely seamless interop, so that you will be able to interact from any chain to any other chain, from any address to any other address, anywhere in the network. In one click, everything just works in real time. So with this, if you need your own chain, you will be able to launch it, and we know that people will need it for the bunch of reasons that I mentioned.
Okay, and how does it look at Polygon, Aglayer? Because Polygon, I think, is also known for building almost anything that is kinda needed, right? So you have Maiden, right? You have Aglayer, you have Zisk now, right? So
yeah, but Zisk is just technology for building that layer or for building a consensus protocol. At the end, this is a KVM. mean, the main value of the aggregation layer is reducing the friction between, between transfers, between communications, between chains. When we're talking about the L2 space,
yeah. So so maybe like another question, like you mentioned, like this interop, right? We have super chain, elastic chain, ag layer, but do you really guys think that that there will be like need for so many of those chains with the fully working interop? Like, will the users care? Will the builders care? Right? Is it like, will there actually be like a huge demand for those in your opinion?
I think it's going to be a lot because it's the L2 chains mainly so they give. You can define. You can have very specialized, but they can have their own governance. They can have their own rules and their own set. It's not the same a private chain of a bank for working with their employees that a public chain that's doing some DeFi stuff, that maybe some chain for a game that, they are different in a sense, and they will have different requirements, okay? And there is, L2s, it's going to be, because L1s, you need consensus and you are stick to the consensus, you are going to have always some restrictions. I put an example. If you want to have a real decentralized network, L1, going below, 4 or 5 seconds block time looks like not possible, at least today. There are some limits there. Well, unless you are sacrificing something from the security, from the trilemma somewhere. Okay, so maybe there is going to be some L2s that they're going to go faster because they're going to sacrifice that, and they are specific to these L2s. And that's fine for their application to do that L2. So here we have a space to cover. If you are in a game, maybe you cannot wait for 3, 4, 5 seconds. You want to do it in few milliseconds because, you are playing there. It's kind of real-time thing. So you are going to need some L2, something that somehow lower the security or at least temporarily has a different properties, but at the same time connects with the rest of the ecosystem. So I think it's going to be always a space for L2s. Because it's a full ecosystem. And the other thing is that, connecting networks is not. It's a full stack. It's not only the transfer thing. It's the transfer, the libraries, the UI, how they connect with each other. Here there is a lot of tooling and building that needs to be done around all this ecosystem. So here I think that the L2 entities, they will have a lot of work to do in that space.
Okay, and you mentioned very important thing in my opinion, that there will be like a lot of those L2s that will be doing like a lot of different things, right? So for example, like gaming, as you mentioned, or like DEX or whatever. But all of them will have different requirements, right? So I would move like to the topics of this premium DA thesis of L1 and actually like exporting like the values of the L1. So let's say you are a gaming chain, right? So you doing like a lot of you need to do a lot of like millions of transactions, but you want to keep them cheap, right? So will you actually like fully export the L1 values, right? Would you become a full rollup there, right? And use the blobs, or maybe like there is like some other logic that you guys would have for such projects, right? So I know, like for example, Marek Celo is right now using EigenDA, right, for this specific reason. But I think like with all of those additional trust layers, right, there is also like some associated problems, especially if some projects don't actually implement the DA bridge. And for Elastic Chain, I know that like the second biggest project after ZK Sync era, right, is Sophon, and Sophon is also using AltDA, right? So because like they kind of focus on those alternative, less secure, let's say, but more like robust approaches. So the question is, if you guys don't think that at some point maybe they would like to like break off from our ecosystem, right? Like staying with Celestia, staying with with Avail EigenDA, or maybe you actually like move to blobs at some point after we will scale them enough. So what do you like? Marek, you can start. You are the Alt-DA guy here.
Yeah, so Celo uses EigenDA, and we chose EigenDA, a while back. I think before Ethereum really started like aggressively scaling its blob space, and we were particularly worried because we have a lot of users in emerging markets who are very price sensitive. That when the next big kind of speculative, I guess, boom happened on Ethereum, that again, blobs would get too expensive for a lot of these users, and we didn't want to price them out of their kind of day-to-day activities that they rely on Celo. Now, of course, that really didn't happen, and Ethereum is scaling blob space, and so I think we're definitely watching very closely, and we're definitely very, very keen to see Ethereum scale, because I think in the past we've said that once Ethereum reaches full dank sharding, I think we'd be very eager to transition to using Ethereum blobs. But for now, we're very, very happy with EigenDA. I think it has like 12% of all staked ETH is now used to create EigenDA nodes. So that's quite a lot of ETH. I think it's on the order of $5 billion worth of ETH. And their throughput is just pretty incredible. I think it's 10 megabytes per second, which is I think a good amount more than on Ethereum even after Pectra. So we're very content right now, and yeah, I think it gives us differentiation. I think it allows us to focus on our use cases where people really do care about really cheap transactions, and I think as a result we're very happy.
Okay, and Alex, like you are kind of like a head of ZK stack in theory, right? So how does it look like from your perspective, right? What do you actually advise for, let's say, like Deutsche Bank, right, comes to you, right, and they ask like they present their specific needs, right? And how does it look from your side? What do you actually tell them about like the values and the Ethereum ecosystem in general?
Yeah, in ZK Sync ecosystem, we have chains that are using different types of DA, from Ethereum, which is Era, and some others, to Sophon with EigenDA, Abstract with Celestia. These private chains by institutions are hosting the data themselves because it must be private. They cannot post it publicly. And we are agnostic as a technology provider towards this. But I think for Ethereum, it does not really matter. The settlement function of layer 1 is way more important than the data availability function. Data availability is important for specific use cases, like for absolute hardcore censorship-resistant DeFi. Like if you want that, then yes, you will have to use Ethereum's data availability. But if you have other trust assumptions, then like the additional trust assumptions that are coming with an external DA, if it's sufficiently decentralized, are probably not adding like more concerns.
Okay.
The settlement, the fact that Ethereum is used as a settlement layer, allows for this universal coordination, because we now have a clear shared source of truth of what is the state of each chain. The data availability is not important for this, because you only care about at this Ethereum block, we have the commitments from all these chains. Here's the Merkle root of each chain. We can provide a Merkle proof that certain state exists there. And DA is transitory. It's ephemeral. You can always change it from one block to another. It's essentially going to become a commodity.
Okay, but you wouldn't say that kinda with blobs right now we have 6, right? Soon it will be probably 12, then 24, and so on, so on. So we will not really need Alt-DA. You could just, we could put just everything on the Ethereum and just enjoy this best security, right?
Eventually Ethereum will develop in the fullness of time to implement the data availability sampling, and we'll have quite a high overall throughput for DA that's going to be sufficient for most rollups, I believe.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. And we are slowly running out of time, but this is an L2-bit panel, right? So we need to tackle the topic of decentralization and stages in particular, right? So recently, at least, we had this debate on X, on Twitter, that tackled the base team, right? And this whole like idea of decentralizing of L2s in terms of like the sequencer, right? So right now, after those, at DEF CON, it was like all of these panels that I was participating in, like this whole idea behind stages was a lot different than it is now. Like it's only like 6 or some months, but a lot of things changed. So how are you guys looking at our work, right? At L2Bit, at our framework? We soon will have the recategorization, right? So some of the chains will lose the rollup status, right? And yeah, what's your opinion here? Like maybe we can start with you, Marek or Jordi. Particularly maybe with the decentralized sequencer part, right? Because I think that's the most interesting.
I think first and
right
foremost, I think L2Bit just creates such a good public good, and I think that you're keeping the whole space honest and shining a light on it. I think it's just an incredible public good. So first and foremost, big thank you. We're working. Yeah, one clap. Woo!
L2Bit power.
But yeah, at Cello, we're looking ahead. We're thinking about not just kind of the equivalent of stage 1. We have LTA, and so we're not quite categorized the same way. But we're not looking just at that milestone, but also kind of the further milestones, around stage 2. And so we're very actively now building towards that now that we've become an L2. So that's pretty exciting. But you mentioned the decentralized sequencer, and I think that's a really interesting, topic now that's being debated, right? Do you need a decentralized sequencer to be, a truly decentralized rollup, or L2? And my thesis is, I actually think yes. I do think that this is important. I do think, though, that the reason maybe it's not being pushed so aggressively right now is that ultimately Ethereum can be the best decentralized sequencer for all these chains, but we're not really there yet, right? I think the block times are probably a little too long. I think the pre-confirmation work that's happening is still being worked on. I think if you try to use a based rollup today, it's not really what you would expect from a typical rollup in terms of its usability. And so when we first started, we had this idea, let's just take the Cello validator set. We have an L1 validator set. Let's turn that into a decentralized sequencer. And that got us really excited, and we started working towards it. But then we realized that actually that would just make us siloed within all of Ethereum. Like what we want to have a decentralized sequencer, but one that was also shared so that we could have full real-time composability with the rest of Ethereum. And so that took us down the path of working with Espresso. We're really excited about what Espresso is offering. Espresso has a really interesting way of doing both decentralized and shared sequencing that also every 12th block allows you to also base sequence. And I think that is a really interesting design because it allows you to have those shorter block times, but still full composability with Ethereum, every 12 seconds. And so we're pretty excited about that future. And we think that, unlike just taking our own validator set and using it to be a decentralized sequencer, using something that's shared across all of Ethereum ultimately is the best path forward.
Okay, and I'm really curious, how does it look like from the Inc. perspective, right? As a sex-backed L2, right? Because I guess you guys have a lot more compliance to take care of than the others. So,
why do you're rugging our stage 1 implementation though in like whatever it is, 60 days or 120 days?
No, I think it's 20 actually.
Yeah,
so we don't have much time to.
No, we don't. No, I'm kidding. So on the centralized side, like we have a bunch of money licenses and all kinds of weird things, the regulatory licenses that we have to protect. And so like launching this thing out of a SEX means that we have OFAC compliance on it. There's a lot of like things that like feel really icky to us, but we have to do them in this world, especially on operating this business and all around the world. So it actually helps us out if we're kind of being patient and waiting to see how, like you said, like the L1 is potentially our sequencer, but you know, some like Gattaca and other stacks, like I don't think that they're ready too much for production. So we're kind of like being a little patient in how we're doing research and how we're going to decentralize and get to stage 2 and beyond. But you know, yeah, like we're taking our time with it, but it actually helps us out because we feel that like the Eye of Sauron of like operating your own chain from a business like ours will turn to us sometime, you know, a year and a half from now. I think that regulators aren't really catching up with what it means to do that. Of course, Coinbase did it very early, and they, you know, have a little bit of scrutiny. But again, like regulators aren't kind of catching up to that. So it will help us out to actually, you know, decentralize at some point. It's just we have a little bit of time until I think everything catches up with us.
Okay, I see, Jordi, that you are smiling, so maybe you want to add something here.
Yes, I'm a little bit pessimistic on it. I think that we are much worse in decentralizing the L2s than we were 2 years ago. I think we went a step back. I mean, at some point we had a competition, kind of a competition between being optimistic rollups and ZK rollups. At the end of the day,
Good old days.
we are all multi-sig rollups. That's what we are right now. This is the end of the story. Why would you need ZK? I mean, you have a multi-sig that can do whatever. It's this is where we are, and we don't care. Probably the market don't care. That's a reality. I mean, this is a little bit depressing. So if the market don't demand that, why L2s should do that? That's for me the biggest. I mean, that's the. I'm a little bit. I mean, this is my big concern on that. We are losing a lot of the values, so there is not much push. There is not much push in that direction. I mean, we can talk about sequencers. I mean, who's going to do a decentralized sequencer if they are going to lose some throughput or they are going to lose some block time when the market is demanding block times? Yeah. I mean, that's a reality that we are living. Okay, so
I'm a bit depressed as well because I know that when somebody comes to roll up as a service company and they asked them about, you know, whole setup, the number one thing is incentives, and it's never actually, you know, like the stages or anything like that. So I guess we need to do a bit better on that front as well to beat.
So but I mean, it's not. I'm probably. I mean, again, probably it's not the fault of the L2 companies. I mean, they are trying. I mean, they are providing. I mean, they are fighting for the markets. Okay, so they are trying to adapt to the markets. I would say that the markets that we have right now, and you just check. I mean, just DeFi or Degen or games. I mean, what just take with the market and that what they demand. They are not demanding decentralization at all. If the market don't demand that, do not expect that the industry will go in that direction. The industry understood as a business, as it is.
And Alex, you are the last one.
I agree with Jordi. I see, though, that the market demands decentralization. We see it even from institutions. They need decentralization, like for various types of things. It's just one of the requirements, and the priority of these requirements is not exactly aligned with cypherpunk.
Are they willing to pay? I mean, the question is, are they willing to pay?
Yeah. They're willing to pay.
With fees or pay with sacrificing other...
Look, like here's like I was expecting a spicy take on like when stage 1, but reality is that for ZK Sync, our customers, like people we're talking to, demand decentralized sequencing above the stage 1. Like decentralized sequencing is actually more important than stage 1. The reason for this is that going for I feel that the stages spectrum or like the scale is a little bit could have been improved, because for ZK like there is a huge step function going from an optimistic rollup to a ZK rollup. This has not been reflected in the stages, but there is a very small value add going from a ZK rollup to stage 1. Like if a ZK rollup is decentralized, you have a proper security council, you have a decentralized governance, it should have been its own stage. So like first going to ZK rollup, then going to a decentralized governance setup, and then going to stage 1. Because what happens right now is your trust assumptions on these rollups, on all of these rollups, is your security console and your governance system is not compromised. And if there is censorship or any other problem happening, like a bug in the system or like an attack or something, you expect the security console and the governance to step in and fix the problem. And so if there's going to be like a broad-scale censorship by the sequencer, which is centralized, they will have to fix this problem. They will have to reappoint a different sequencer. It's the case for us, it's the case for everyone else. What will really be interesting is if you have a decentralized sequencing, it increases your resilience, like truly increases your resilience. It's not just one organization, not one DevOps structure, it's like actually multiple ones. This is what institutions need, like very explicitly, even if they run it themselves, they need a decentralized sequencing setup. And then going to stage 2, this will really be a step function. Like this will really like bring you to the level of decentralization of the entire system close to Ethereum itself. Like stage 1 is not taking you like much closer. Because if the security council or governance is malicious, stage 1 is not going to help you. That's the problem.
Okay, yeah, so that
Still is, I mean, a multi-sig is still some sort of decentralization. I mean, it's better a multi-sig than a single sig on that sense, so the thing. But is it enough? Look, I don't think that we are not going to evolve until there is no big attack to the system. I mean, I'm expecting maybe, I don't know, the Chinese government or the kidnapping the multi-sig people are forcing them to do something. Or, I mean, it probably needs to happen something like that to realize that.
Let's hope not.
I was going to say, please no.
we are actually, people from L2B are parts of many security councils actually, so well, let's hope it will not happen. But yeah, I see your, yeah, I also think that the first you need to like have this huge shock factor, right, for everybody to kind of wake up. So yeah, so I get it. But like all of this kind of like connects to this last part of our panel, last topic that I wanted to focus on, and it's like basically this ZK development, right? Because I think there is like this movement now that like many people believe is that this whole L2 and rollup centric roadmap was like a psyop, right, to kind of push this development of ZK, of like real-time provers and everything else needed to scale L1 to like private companies. And now that, okay, we'll have it, so we can take it as an L1, right, and we can just become perfect, right? So I know like Jordi and Alex, you are like kind of leading on this field, so maybe you can really quickly give us some context to our listeners.
I think that this is a normal thing for Ethereum to embrace the most advanced technology. Everything is going to be ZK. This is absolutely it has been clear for years that ZK is the end game. We're now coming in the world of real-time ZK proving. The ZK, ZK enables chains that cannot be evil. Once you have chains that cannot be evil, you can actually connect them in a really beautiful way.
So are like those two optimistic rollups evil then?
It will have to upgrade at some point.
Yeah.
We're already working on it.
Okay. And Jordi, I guess you are like the,
yeah, I mean,
the big brain here from the...
Yeah, but that's, I mean, I agree with Alex. 2 years ago, well, actually, even 1 year ago, proving an Ethereum block took a few minutes, 1 minute, 2 minutes, okay? Today it takes a few seconds. And probably, I don't know, next year, or in 2 years, we will reach sub-second. This is a huge, so at the moment that we are crossing the barrier of the block time, this is a huge breakthrough, especially for consensus protocols. Because at the moment that you can introduce ZK in the block generation, this changes a lot. And this is where the Bean chain is about. Connecting chains is also a breakthrough because, I mean, you want this reduced interoperability. I mean, if you really want to connect chains, I mean, and scale that. I mean, if you want to connect two chains, maybe you don't need that. But if you want to connect many chains that are appearing and disappearing from the chain, you are going to need ZK, and you are going to need fast ZK. So ZK is a tech that, I mean, whatever you want to do in blockchain, you are going to need it if you want to evolve. That's why it's fundamental. And these breakthroughs that are happening, I mean, year after year, they are enabling new applications and new way to understand the space. Need to be also a little bit prudent because, I mean, this technology, even it has been mature a lot in the last years. It's still a new technology, and I mean, we are still learning a lot of things. And this, I mean, especially from the security perspective, I mean, we need to be very, very careful. But it's clearly the future happens with this, and this is probably the good news. I mean, I've been very pessimistic before, but for me, the optimistic part is, I mean, if you want to build real decentralized networks, you are going to need ZK, and ZK is evolving. So, and we are getting, I mean, we are having this technology at this point, and this is, for me, this is what at the end brings me the bright future for the blockchains, because this is what will enable to have real decentralized scalability and decentralization at the same time. We saw in the rollups, in the beginning of the rollups at least, and we will see it in the future.
And maybe just to add to that, I think real-time proving, the fact that we just crossed this milestone recently, that's a huge milestone, and it's going to be amazing for composability across L2s. But the other really amazing, I think, breakthrough has been the fact that proving machine code, proving like the RISC-V or the MIPS ISA, has also become feasible. And so suddenly, you know, it no longer takes kind of the gigabrains that we have on the stage here with us today to be able to write code that can be proven very efficiently, even in real time. And then, you know, verified on Ethereum. And so I think that's the other like incredible breakthrough that's happened right now. And I think it brings ZK, it makes it way more accessible to the whole Ethereum ecosystem. And that's why I'm, again, really bullish on Ethereum, because I think the combination of real-time proving and the fact that you can prove ISAs, so anyone can program in basically any language and compile to those ISAs and still be able to ZK prove their code, that together will just create, you know, just an incredible amount of value for the Ethereum ecosystem. So I'm, yeah, very, very bullish.
Okay, and I guess our time is almost up, right? So I don't know if we have time for any questions. So we have 4 minutes. So I guess we can go through a couple. So yeah, you can start.
To the point where the only legitimate thing for L1 to do is to service the L2s and nothing else.
I mean, there was a plan back in the day. It's probably changed in the last half year to make Ethereum mainnet an L2 underneath an Ethereum future L1. And so, I've heard this from various researchers. This was, never, I think, the formal view of the Ethereum Foundation or I think any big organization in the ecosystem, but people were talking about that. And so I think it may not be that crazy for that to happen. I'm not sure how that fits into the current roadmap. I think if it ever were to happen, it would probably be quite a ways away. But I think in the end, once Ethereum becomes the settlement layer for all of Web3, Ethereum's value will come from the network effects that it enables. And I suspect that value is going to be way in excess of all of the network effects that exist today in the EVM on the L1. So I think it's not a crazy idea, but I wouldn't be able to bet one way or another at this point whether it'll happen. I think it's too far into the future.
I would say that, let's say from the theoretical perspective, if you are telling me 100% of the transactions are going to be L2s, I don't think this is practical. I don't think this will happen for practical reasons, at least in the near future. But what's true is that, I mean, if you start analyzing the transactions that happens in Ethereum, most of them, so not all of them, but a huge percentage of them are going to be L2 related, because the value, I mean, at the end is, you know, Ethereum at the end is I mean, it's an auction, and transactions are really the ones that are giving more value. So the L2, I mean, they are aggregating all the value of the layer. So it makes sense that these transactions are the ones that are running in layer 1. So from the practical sense, I mean, seeing a moment that maybe 60, 70, 80% of the gas time, of the gas of Ethereum is spent in L2s, probably that's more feasible. I mean, that I believe more in that scenario.
Okay, and do we have time for one quick question? Okay, so maybe guy from Tali.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a quick one. The title of the panel is How Do L2s Win as L1 Matures? And we've talked a lot about technology here. Of course, in the end, we win because somebody's using it and because we have customers or we have clients. What are the thoughts around sort of like specialization? I know ZK Sync has a new sort of orienting towards institutions. What are the sort of ideas about how actually you win from like product market fit point of view, rather than technology? Because as you mentioned earlier, Jordi, you know, maybe they are all multi-sigs. You know, I think people can debate that in some piece, and the users don't care. So how do we actually win from the actual like product market fit point of view? It's to everybody.
It's hard for me to answer because we are in the position of just being the technology provider, and this, like, basically we're building the cloud service. So it's up to businesses to use this cloud service to develop the business proposition. So like all the different chains in the Elastic Network world, they have their own special recipes, but it's not up to ZK Sync to decide. Like, our job is to provide the best, most scalable, most future-proof technology, and connect them in the network with seamless 1-second interrupt.
Again, for another cheesy answer, I think crypto obviously has had, Ethereum in general has had PMF from day one, right? And you know, like, that's the beauty of, you know, the L1 scaling is like all the L2s can start doing like more application-specific things. Like that's kind of like our like pivot a little bit. Instead of it just being like a general purpose chain, it's like we're going very, very just like institutional and kind of prosumer like specific with that. So yeah, sorry, like my cheesy answer though is like PMF's already there. And I do agree that, like, you know, we're providing like Rails and technology for, you know, making all these partnerships with, like, I don't know, VPNs, browsers, I don't know, OnlyFans, whatever it may be, right? Like, then we need to bring them all on chain.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. Products, when you think in products, I mean, the problem is that, let's see, decentralized products, 10 years ago, they just didn't exist, or they were minimal, okay? So it's like a new space. So thinking, if you are trying to think in products, you're probably going to think in the Web2 mindset, okay? And then you are going to do the mistake of building some Web2 application on top of Web3, probably because it's cool, okay? So, and this is, I think it's a mistake by itself, because, I mean, if you are doing a Web2 product, just use Web2 technology. That's really good. I mean, if you are building a bank, I mean, do not use blockchain. I mean, just use a SQL database that works much better. I mean, I tell you, I promise. The question here is that the degree of the decentralization. And here is where I think that the diversity of L2s plays the role, and finding that is the interesting thing on there. And we were talking before. I mean, not all applications, so you need to think first in applications that require some sort of decentralization, because if not, just go to the Web2. But not all applications require the same properties, I mean, the same degree of decentralization. So adapting to the product means very much understanding what's the degree of this decentralization. And this is where I think you can find the real value. I mean, Alex was explaining a lot about when we talk with the banks and the requirements, and it's an example of some need of decentralization. Maybe they don't need the full Ethereum decentralization, but they require some, maybe some kind of multi-sig or some committee, or I mean, something on there. So that's, I think that there, I mean, understanding the degree of decentralization and what exactly the values of the decentralization they need, and providing them the specific tool that satisfies this decentralization, here is where we will find the real value for these applications.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys very much. And if any of you have any other questions, I guess you can catch them after the panel. I'm sure they will love that, and I guess we need to kind of get going, right? Yeah, so maybe just a quick little selfie after the panel, and we can go. So
thank you, everyone, and the next presentation will start shortly.